everyone. I'm Brendan, and I'm your host of Mid-90s OVA Theater. Part two. Now, I'll need everyone to bear with me a little bit as I start off things this year, because the OVAs I'll be talking about have their roots in the strange world of first-generation PC gaming in Japan. Specifically, this game, Sotsugyo Graduation. Graduation was originally released in 1992 for the PC-98 at the tail end of the latter's decade of dominance over the Japanese PC market. The game itself feels like a distant ancestor of time and relationship management games like Persona, putting you in the shoes of a high school teacher in charge of 5 girls with the goals of keeping their grades, their health, and their spirits high, guiding them to their graduation. If this sounds really familiar to you, it only looks kind of familiar, you may have played this game, Graduation for Windows 95. This was released in the States in 1997, and is actually not a port of Sotsugyo Graduation, but of its sequel, Sotsugyo II, Neo Generation, which came out in Japan in 1994. Back in its day, Graduation was something of a phenomenon. Indeed, even with a sequel game on the shelves, the producers, Studio Headroom, were jumping headlong into the OVA boom, and in 1995 oversaw the release of the 2-episode adaptation of Sotsugyo Graduation, with all the characters everybody knew and loved from the first game. There's the rebellious Kiyomi, ditzy Mami, studious Shizuka, energetic Mika, and prim Reiko. Graduation was never released in the States, which I think is a shame because it's a fine piece of work. With the opening credits rolling over exams, the anime divorces itself from the game proper and frees the girls to ask themselves what it means that they are about to graduate, both as individuals and collectively as a group. There's a sort of melancholy that pervades the show as we watch the girls try to rationalize giving up their original dreams of the future for the more practical demands of the present. And not even just these working class folks, it's also the rich girl that has important decisions to make. And it's not like her father is unreasonable about all this going on. A big part of what makes this show so satisfying is that all of the girls' parents genuinely care about their kids. And this concern, along with the concern that girls have for each other, really makes this a satisfying slice of life. I recommend it to all fans of the genre and pretty much everyone else. But if you want a little more, say, action or comedy than a bunch of girls talking about their feelings, don't you worry. Studio Headroom has got you covered too. Later in 1995, they released Graduation episodes 3 and 4, and instead of having anything to do with anything, on alternate world, which is a bizarre blend of past, present, and future Japan. How bizarre a blend? Well, instead of graduating from anywhere, the girls operate a team of giant ninja mecha. The name of their team is used the proper title for these 2 episodes, Sailor Victory. So the question there is, who did they use the giant ninja mecha to fight? Well, the answer is usually ordinary criminals with giant mecha of their own. Like this truck-headed behemoth right here. He's robbing a bank of what I assume is the old Japanese equivalent of burlap sacks with dollar signs. This thing is pretty dangerous and more than a match for the underfunded police force and their incredibly doofy patrolmen. So it's up to Sailor Victory to save the day. And lest you think the ninja motif is just window dressing, they really do pull all sorts of ridiculous ninja tricks, like appearing and disappearing in a cloud of cherry blossoms, airdropping on giant kites, clinging to buildings at improbable angles, hiding behind sheets with false building facades, or throwing shuriken or giant kunai. The whole thing is super exaggerated. I mean, the characters, you've got Reiko, is now super rich, so as to be the group's primary financial resource. And Shizuka is super intelligent, as the design demands. So the other 3 are the pilots, naturally. Mika and Kiyomi are experts at ninja mecha combat, and Mami, well, the show's largest running gag is that Mami is extra useless. Her bumbling is such a detriment to the rest of the team that Reiko takes the liberty of making, or having Shizuka make, an android copy of Mami, who's actually good at piloting the robot. This is why she appears twice on the Laserdisc covers and in the opening credits. They just share the cockpit. See if you can tell which is which. This whole thing is a little pile of awesome, and y'all should watch it. And good news, Media Blasters got their hands on this one and released it on VHS and DVD. And this wasn't the only graduation spin-off that got the Anime Works treatment. They also licensed another 2-episode OVA, which was originally released in '96. This one, Marriage, Ketcom. Now, Marriage begins by reintroducing us to the girls from graduation who have all grown up and gotten jobs as office ladies in the same office in downtown Tokyo. With the same names and the same voices. Now, the suggestion that the girls end up so firmly entrenched in the typical Japanese business machine is a slap in the face to anyone who has fond memories of the original OVA, where most of them have clear goals that lie very much elsewhere. But I will now proceed to describe why I don't consider this to be canon. First, keep in mind that Marriage Ketcon the OVA is not so much a sequel of Sotsugo Graduation the OVA as much of an adaptation of Ketcon Marriage the game. Which, I mean, was a sequel to Sotsugo Graduation the game, but it's not the same thing. Also, in the second episode of Marriage, even though the character names, voices, personalities, and new designs all remain the same, their entire backstory is thrown out the window and they are all cast as sisters, which is obviously not canon with any iteration of the characters. So there's less reason to assume the first episode is. Now, if you bear with me a moment, this is actually very reminiscent of an unrelated but similar OVA, which was also overseen by Studio Headroom in 1994. Tanjo Debut. This OVA is, of course, based on a 1993 idle sim game with the same name, where instead of controlling the lives of 5 high schoolers, you control the lives of 3 up-and-coming media talents. The OVA, which, like Graduation, never made it to the States, 3 girls plus 1, essentially play themselves, names and all, in 2 completely different scenarios. But the episodes are tied together by the op, which, in addition to looking mostly like a standard opening sequence, rolls no credits, and takes some time near the end to set up the shorts as in-world canon productions that the girls are cast in. Brilliant! The Marriage episodes, on the other hand, are tangentially related to each other, but instead of by the opening, by what happens in between the eye catches. You see, the Marriage OVA as a whole is a surreal sort of historical snapshot slash how-to guide slash infomercial for real, actual marriage in the mid-90s Japan. The 2 stories are about finding a date and courting and proposing to that date. And in the middle of each episode is a chibi classroom with tips and, as you can see, infographics. One gets the feeling that people were worried about the decline in Japan's population growth even as far back as '95. Now, some of you might be thinking, marriage is a 2-way street, eh? What are the guys doing in this whole thing? Well, the rabbit hole goes so much deeper. You see, much like the Graduation girls, these 5 guys, visible here in the op, play different parts in the 2 different episodes, but maintain their respective names, voices, personalities, design, etc. And they have full names. In fact, their surnames are the same as the surnames of the Graduation girls. This is less an indication of anything weird about Marriage in particular, or weirder, than it is an artifact of where these characters originally come from. I think. See, I haven't been able to locate any record of these characters prior to the emergence of the phenomenon known as Graduation Crossworld. As far as I can tell, Crossworld is the result of an attempt made in the spring of 1995 to merge the storylines from original Graduation and Neo Generation. The process was so successful that it not only merged Graduations 1 and 2, but it conjured 2 other storylines out of thin air and wound them up with the Game Girls. One of them being Graduation M, Male Graduation. And it's the non-canon grown-up versions of these 5 characters that play opposite the non-canon grown-up versions of the original Graduation girls in the Marriage OVA. And this wasn't the last of these guys. They got their own off and on manga and drama CD releases from 1996 to 99. In early 99, when things were finally starting to wrap up, they got a 2-episode anime adaptation of their own, Oritachi no Carnival, which I also never made it to the States and which I personally haven't seen. Oh, Well, what I think is the most bizarre thing about this whole tangent is the 5 voice actors who played the characters in the OVAs and the drama series were also a band. All M. Rather, they took the letter M, ported it to Japanese where it's spoken as Emu, ported that back to English, made EM, and then acronymed that into Entertainment Music Unit. I'm starting to get a little off track here. By this point, some of you are probably wondering, Brendan, what about the other sale? Well, friends, that little oddity is not known as graduation anything, but as Ojo-sama So Samo, which got a single episode OVA in '96, which was actually brought over by ADV, who translated the title as Debutante Detective Corp. Which is a decent translation. I own this DVD. I bought it at a used store for $2, and I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of dumb. It's got a certain sense of humor about itself. The whole thing is about these 5 obscenely wealthy girls who apparently all go to the same public high school as these schlubs. This is actually the origin of that shot. Anyway, after receiving a threat against their lives from some criminals who apparently got their hands on the girls' summer vacation videos, it's up to them to use the skills they've acquired in their short but super duper rich lives to ensure their own safety. So you've got this tech enthusiast, you've got the gun enthusiast, the martial artist, the psychokinetic, and a disguise artist. Actually, zoom in on that makeup case, that cat face. That cat face looks familiar. The color, the stripes, it looks like the cat from the background of Cardcaptor Sakura. The whole thing went off of its meds. That thing is the entire show, by the way, from episode 1 all the way to the 2nd movie. And it's not just the plush pillow thing, but Sakura's brother's house slippers. You can see in the background. The attention to detail. It's something about that expression makes me think I've seen it somewhere else before. Because I have. This cat, or one like it, appears in all 4 episodes of the OVA Phantom Quest Corporation, which was released by Studio Madhouse in 1994 to 95. The OVA's native title is Yugen Kaisha, which is a pun in the Japanese terms for limited liability corporation and the occult. This is the point of the overly long text sequence that precedes each episode. And what's it about? Well, it's basically 4 episodes of anime Ghostbusters. So, Ayaka Kisaragi, seen here in the middle, and seen here drunkenly warbling into the intercom of a taxi at the end of a typical night of booze and karaoke, owns and operates the Phantom Quest Corporation. She uses her considerable supernatural powers and skills as both detective and combatant. And for anything that she can't take care of herself, she taps her stable of part-timers and contractors, who each bring their own particular area of expertise to the situation. Ayaka's only permanent employee is Mamoru Shimezu. He handles logistics, maintains the company's base of operations, and otherwise functions as Ayaka's surrogate mother. He's also the one the most on top of the company's financial situation, which tends to vary from in debt to deeply in debt, due in no small part to Ayaka's excess spending. The fact that the voice of reason in the Kisaragi household is an 11-year-old boy is never really explained. I think I read somewhere that their families are supposed to have one of those master-servant relationships like in Orin High School, but I can't confirm that. The Phantom Quest Corporation also has a somewhat symbiotic relationship with the Tokyo Police Department's U Division, a 3-person team that gets handed anything that looks supernatural. We don't see the 2 on the right very often, as it's the guy in the coat that does all the legwork. His name is Detective Carino, and he often hires Phantom Quest Corp as consultants, providing Ayaka with some income and a certain number of police access. And he joins in raid operations to bring down the hammer of the law on any mundane participant in whatever mayhem may be occurring. Now, this whole thing, and the main character in particular, seems to me like a giant ripoff of Ghost Sweeper Mikami.
I love Ghost Sweeper.
You're probably right. Ghost Sweeper Mikami the movie came out in the middle of Phantom Quest's run, but it was just the capstone of a year-long TV show that began in 1993, which was itself based on the first several volumes of an ongoing manga, which began in 1982. And continued to be serialized and shown in Sunday for almost 8 years. I actually haven't seen any of Ghost Sweeper either. I'm sure it's a fine show, and it's pretty likely that Studio Madhouse just wanted to take a ride on Mikami's coattails. From what I gather from the Google image search, though, it does seem like Madhouse was aiming for an older demographic with Phantom Quest. While Ghost Sweeper wears its early 90s shonen manga aesthetic on its sleeve, and while Miss Mikami looks decent, she could be a poster child for giant anime eyes. Phantom Quest Corporation, on the other hand, seems to be a little more subtle, a little more realistic, maybe a little more detailed. Miss Kisaragi in particular is just cartoonish enough to be absolutely smoking hot. Just look at that face.
Brendan.
And that chest.
Brendan.
And that hair.
Brendan! Wrap it up, man. Don't make it weird.
So, mid-90s OVAs going. Watch your song.
To a close a little bit early, our good anime panel, but before we kick into bad anime at the top of the next hour, we would like to introduce you to the Con Artists Online. We now have our own website, we have a YouTube page, we also have a Facebook page as well. So if you want to follow us, see some of the videos from years past, and read a number of reviews and podcasts that we are bringing out, then join us on any of these sites. Additionally, if you have to leave right now and want to take some information with you, we have information on all of the shows that we just talked about down on these sheets right here, as well as a link to our website.
So come on down.